Welcome to Keeping It Green, a podcast for ornamental plant professionals and enthusiasts, with hosts Margaret Pickoff, Tom Butzler, and Tim Abbey.
Hello, welcome to Keeping It Green, a podcast from Penn State Extension for ornamental plant professionals and enthusiasts. I'm one of your hosts, Margaret Pickoff. I'm a horticulture educator with Penn State Extension, and on each episode, I'll be joined by my colleagues on the green industry team as co-hosts. On today's episode, my co-hosts are Tim Abbey and Tom Butzler. Hello, Tim and Tom.
Hello.
Hey, Margaret and Tom. Nice to see both of you again.
Nice to have you guys co-hosting today. On today's episode, we'll be joined by Rachel Schnaitman from Longwood Gardens. Before we get to our interview with Rachel, we like to check in with each other about what we're working on or seeing in the field at this time of year. I'll start because I was really excited to experience my first Philly flower show in the convention center. I was able to go last year, but it was still outside at FDR Park, and this year I got to experience it in its more traditional glory, I guess. And it was really cool. I spent the morning there, and I'm just amazed that I think that talking to other people who have gone for years, you don't quite get the same effect of kind of like bundling up in the winter weather and then shedding all your layers and entering this like springy wonderland, because yesterday it was like 55 degrees and sunny, and we have daffodils and cherry blossoms already in Philly, but I had a really amazing time, and so that was my big horticulture experience this week. What about you guys?
Well, I guess I'm listening to you, Margaret. I'm saying bummer, because I look out my window and it's snowing. A snowstorm here now, and then I guess we got a second one rolling in possibly on Monday. So I guess the Pennsylvania groundhog was right. 6 more weeks of winter, I think it originally stated. But one other thing is I was teaching the other day, and I had an interaction with a Christmas tree grower. He grows about 200 acres, and we were talking about some of the cultivars that they grew on there. And if you recall, a couple episodes back, we had Rick Bates talk about some of the Christmas tree cultivars, and this individual was kind of mimicking exactly what Rick was saying. There's a big interest in Fraser firs, but in some areas of Pennsylvania, they just don't grow real well. And this individual was leaning towards the Turkish firs. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Interesting that one of our, what you've learned from our podcast guests has come into your real world interactions with growers. That's very cool.
And
what about you, Tim?
I don't think I should be serving as a co-host, because in all the years I've been here in Pennsylvania, I've avoided the Philly flower show because I don't like crowds.
I don't like crowds either, but I went right when it opened, and I was by myself, and I spent just enough time there where I was like, okay, I'm getting hungry, I'm getting overwhelmed, so I'm going to leave. It's perfect.
Yeah, overstimulated by all those bright plant colors. Yeah. No hort stuff for me, I guess. But I did do a program for probably, 100 fourth graders yesterday on entomology. And I've been doing it a number of years, and that's always a blast, because at the one school I bring in edible crickets and mealworms, and at the end they get to try those if they want to eat them. So there's always lots of fun reactions with kids eating insects.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Fourth grade is such an awesome age. I think kids are really still really excited about things and curious, and yeah, that's great. I should try to do some more school programming. It sounds fun. Well, wonderful. Great to check in with you guys. Let's bring on our guest for today, Rachel Schnaitman. She is the Associate Director of Horticulture Operations at Longwood Gardens in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, right pretty close to where I am in southeastern PA. So welcome, Rachel. We're excited to have you.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Hi. Yeah, great.
So Rachel, can you start out by telling us about your job at Longwood Gardens?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I recently started this position back in May of 2022. So it's still a little new for me. I feel like I'm still kind of, every day figuring out really what my role is and how it's different from my previous job at Longwood. So I've been at Longwood for just about 10 years now, and I've exclusively been with the Integrated Pest Management group at Longwood. And up until May, I served as the IPM manager. But now in my new role, I have still IPM under me, but a few different roles as well. So I manage the IPM group, but a little bit now less so on the day-to-day operations. And then I also have horticulture purchasing and contract management. And then our second and third shift employees, which we call our night gardeners. And then snow operations. So I run our interior snow operations. So paths and areas that would be accessible by our garden guests. And then we have my counterpart that does parking lot snow removal and kind of some larger roadways. So a little bit of a mixed bag there. And then kind of a big part of my role that I'm kind of still navigating is I also kind of coordinate all of our horticulture operations. So looking at, what our turf grass team is doing as far as work on a daily basis, what our arborists are doing, if our outdoor horticulturalists are planting, new planting, or if our arborists are removing a tree. So kind of looking at all those different puzzle pieces and trying to fit that together and making sure that all the different work is not happening at the same place at the same time. And then also kind of juggling that with the different events that are always going on at Longwood, education classes, performances, and things like that, again, to make sure that we're not in the same space at the same time and kind of managing those conflicts.
Wow. So you've got a big scope of responsibilities. And I know now that in this interview, we're going to get some background information about what's going on in the background, maybe behind the curtain, because as a visitor to Longwood, it's just it's so well managed that you kind of maybe forget that there's all this work going on to make it run so well and look so beautiful and be so welcoming to visitors. But before we get into that, I kind of wonder, you said that you had worked for Longwood for 10 years and started with doing and did IPM management for a long time there. But what was your kind of path to get there? Were you always interested in IPM? Did you go to school for it, or how did you sort of wind up in the Longwood world?
So I would say my initial answer is no. I've always been interested in IPM, and kind of this kind of haphazardly sort of just happened. So I did go to school for wildlife conservation, and I as part of my school, I did take some biocontrol classes, integrated pest management, and I did some work. I assisted a few graduate programs in their work with biocontrol. So I was interested in it, but I can say that I never thought this would be my career path. So this has been just kind of a change of pace from what I thought, but I'm so glad that I did kind of change directions because I really enjoy it. But after graduate school, I unemployed and looking for a job, and a former professor of mine sent me a job advertisement for Longwood. So I started part-time in IPM and then never left. So I guess I really enjoy it 10 years later.
I've been to Longwood a few times, and I still kind of fail to grasp the entire size of the property. But can you just state like how many total acres, and out of all those acres, what would fall under your purview, like that's actually kind of managed horticulture?
Right. So Longwood is a little over 1,000 acres, but that includes things like our composting facility, a lot of our office spaces, classroom buildings, and then more of our natural areas, which are managed by our land stewardship and ecology team. So I would say about a little over 300 acres is a little bit more intensively managed and would fall under the IPM team.
Yeah, I was looking at the Longwood website just to remind myself of all these different types of gardens, and I saw that things are categorized by districts. Like there are all of these districts within the gardens that are composed of many different types of gardens, and it just kind of speaks to the scale and variety that's there. I imagine that it's a challenge to provide sort of management for all of that, and probably really exciting too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've always really loved about working at Longwood and IPM specifically, because it's always something new every day. And it's, especially when you think about IPM, because it is, like you mentioned, the different districts, which actually is something new that we just started. And I don't know that I even myself know them all yet, but like the conservatory district. And then we have all of our outdoor gardens as well, and then greenhouse space. So, it's always a different pest. In our outdoor gardens, you might be dealing with something like boxwood blight. And then inside we're switching to thrips and whitefly. So it's always a little something different. And we're also dealing with structural pests, so our nuisance pests, so things like rodents, geese, algae in our lakes. That's a big one that maybe some people don't know about or think of when they think about IPM at Longwood. But I like to say, if you could consider it a pest, chances are that we're going to get a call to come and check it out.
How often do you have to deal with human pests? I mean, it's very well, marked as far as your paths and, signage and things, but as far as like people kind of going off where they shouldn't be and causing any plant damage.
That's a big one. Luckily, it's a little bit maybe less of the IPM team that deals with that. We might deal with the aftermath a little bit more. But I mean, thinking of, scooters on paths like in the conservatory that maybe run a little bit off the path, and then that first row of plants might be a little trampled. So things like that. But also thinking about things like boxwood blight. How are we going to prevent garden visitors from bringing something like that to the gardens, which is constantly on our mind. I don't know if I have a great solution for that yet, but it is something that we're kind of constantly thinking about.
Yeah, question for you, Rachel. So every once in a while in our office, I have people stop by and asking questions about planting by the moon. And it's not a concept I really understand or have really looked into. But you mentioned night gardeners, and I'm just wondering, maybe that's what that planting by the moon is. So what are your night gardeners? I think maybe I have an idea what a night gardener is, but maybe not.
That planting by the moon is definitely something I'm going to have to look into, because I'm not sure if I know what that is either. But yeah, so our night gardeners, pretty unique term. I don't know what other gardens call their second and third shift employees, but they are basically our eyes and ears on the ground in the gardens when all of our kind of traditional 8 hours a day full-time staff, kind of when they leave the gardens at maybe 3:30 p.m. they're there. They make sure all of our temperatures are still where they should be in our greenhouses and conservatory spaces. Really make sure that there's nothing that shouldn't be happening. Something didn't catch on fire, or a piece of glass is missing from a conservatory roof and the temperature has dropped drastically. So really just ensuring when we're not there that all of our displays are well taken care of, and nothing catastrophic is happening.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, and I guess that's a big puzzle piece with, thinking about how do these public gardens, look so good all the time, and you hardly ever see anyone. I mean, you occasionally come across horticulturists and people weeding, but it's kind of rare for the scale that Longwood and a lot of other public gardens are operating on. That must be such an interesting just kind of dance of making sure all of that is getting done, but not necessarily when you're at the height of your visitorship in the middle of the day or something like that.
Right.
So I wanted to back up a bit and dive a little bit more into your IPM work, because I know that it's something that relates to the work that a lot of our clientele is doing, maybe not in a public garden setting, but certainly in a greenhouse or nursery setting. And I know like all of us are familiar with IPM, but maybe if there's someone out there who doesn't really have a good idea of IPM, Could you talk about IPM in general, and also what the overall strategy is if Longwood has one for managing pests?
Sure. So kind of our mission in the IPM group at Longwood is to really, I would say, define a pest first, because for us it could be a variety of different things. It's always a struggle to really think, is something even a pest? Do we need to do something about it? So a lot of our time is spent researching, really defining that. But I would say for us, it's certainly insects, diseases, viruses on plants, but also really anything that might damage our infrastructure or be some form of hazard to our guests. And we're always looking at doing the kind of, looking at our IPM strategy, doing whatever might be the least toxic, but yet most effective method. And we're using a combination of different controls. So mechanical control, maybe we're just simply, removing something, composting a plant, or looking at cultural control. So maybe we're adjusting our watering methods. Biological control, we do use a lot of different beneficial insects. We are trying to rear some beneficial insects at Longwood. The mealybug destroyer is one that we're currently working on a very small scale. I'd say not anywhere near a commercial lab or anything like that, but trying to do some of that in-house, and then also chemical control where it's warranted. And there might have been another question in there that I am missing, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're doing at IPM. In IPM at Longwood.
So as an example, Rachel, how would that work with boxwoods? I would assume boxwoods, they're large plantings down there at the Arboretum, and you had mentioned boxwood blight. So what would be kind of what would IPM look like for boxwoods and this IPM issue with boxwood blight?
Yeah, so a big part of our kind of goal in IPM is to also create management plans. And for us, it's a constant kind of looking ahead, if where possible, and trying to see what pests we might have that's more up and coming. So for something like boxwood blight, also spotted lanternfly, we had a management plan in place, and inevitably, we did find boxwood blight, 2020, COVID, and boxwood blight, all in the same year. But we did have a kind of preliminary plan in place. So for us, scouting is always really big. So we have one member of the IPM team that, they have many other responsibilities as well, but scouting for boxwood and boxwood leaf mite or boxwood blight is a really big part of her role. So in the summer, probably like June through October, we're scouting for boxwood blight. So we did find boxwood blight pretty early when we first found it. And it was a wide scale removal, which, like you said, we have, just numerous boxwood specimens in our main fountain garden alone. We have over 3,000 plants. So, removal for us, wide scale, it was pretty labor intensive, but removal, we burned all of those plants. So that was kind of our disposal method. Removed all the leaf litter. We actually surface sterilized, we burned, so with a torch, burned the surface of our soil, sterilized all of our paths, and then mulched on top of that. So pretty wide scale, just very labor intensive project. And kind of along with that too is education. So we really like to educate our staff to have the knowledge so that all of our horticulturalists can also identify some of these things. So we'll train them on all of the symptoms of boxwood blight. So, they're in their areas every day. They're out really looking at the plants a lot more than we are. So we want to give them the tools as well, so they'll know.
So there was some removal of plants. Did you go back in with alternatives, or did you look at some of these newer cultivars that have been bred, selected for some resistance to this blight, this fungal organism?
So right now we have not replanted with any boxwood. We are, some areas still, 3 years later have not been replanted, but others have been, but not with boxwood. But we are looking at a lot of those new cultivars that you mentioned. And when we planted our main fountain garden, we were using kind of, I think what was, I don't want to say the best, but one of those cultivars, Green Beauty. And that's what kind of was the best, I guess, at that time. But now thinking going forward, if we do want to replant with boxwood, we're looking at some of the newer cultivars if we want to go that route.
Mhm.
But we're still thinking about that.
You had mentioned earlier about scouting. So I have a question related to that. Do you have, some of the employees who their main focus is being part of that IPM group, do they get assigned certain gardens and that becomes their responsibility so that they can check that stuff on a regular basis?
Yes, that's exactly right. So we have right now, not including myself, there are 3 full-time staff members and a part-time IPM staff member, and they will divide all of the different garden areas. So, our conservatories, they'll have different areas there. One of them has our outdoor gardens, and then we divide our greenhouses as well. So each person has an area they're responsible for. It might be a physical space like a conservatory or greenhouse space, or it might be boxwood. So it kind of varies based on location and plant group.
And just to follow up, or probably where you're doing like the beneficials releases in, like the conservatory area, did you put up signage for, visitors so they kind of knew, the unique things that you were doing in there?
We do have signage, yes. It's funny, I've been to a few talks. I guess it's the winter kind of conference season, and I've seen some pictures of those beneficial signs in some people's slides. So they are there, and hopefully people are enjoying reading about that.
Yeah, I think that's important so that they know, that there's an active ecosystem inside of there, and that the goal is to try to manage those plant feeders without having to come in with, insecticides, particularly when you've got such a volume of people on any given day that's going through there.
Right. And we do also have in our guest services team, we have different docents that are stationed at various parts of our conservatory, and we do some training with them as well, so they'll know what a sachet looks like, and they can kind of explain a little bit to our garden visitors if they see something and want to talk a little bit more about it.
Along those lines of visitor education, I think I read that at some point you were also teaching pest identification classes for visitors, and I kind of wonder, like, who comes to those? What kind of information are they looking for? And are there any pest management topics or aspects that people tend to really struggle with that they're kind of coming to you with questions about?
So we did have a pest identification class that was taught. I've taught that for several years, and I'm hoping that class might come back. Kind of during COVID, that kind of changed a little bit, and I'm hopeful that we can do that at some point in the future. But I would say, as far as who attended, we did offer pesticide recertification credits, so we did get a lot of industry folks that wanted to come and get some credits. Kind of teaching it kind of year after year. I did see some repeat attendees, which was really great. And it was really that particular class was a way to kind of see hands-on, and walk around the gardens and see what different pest issues we were dealing with. So attendees could see them in person, and then we could talk about some management options. And that is, I think, kind of the biggest question that I get is, from garden guests a lot of the time, garden visitors, and they'll email and say, I have this in my yard, what can I do, or what is Longwood doing to control something like that?
So Rachel, when people go to the zoo, they like to see the whole zoo, but there's always 1 or 2 animals that they always have to see. Is there something in the Arboretum, a specific plant or a setting that really draws the attention of your visitors, or is it just anything that's in color?
That's a really good question. I think it definitely varies by time of year. So certainly in the spring, it's always looking at our tulip, at our bulb display. That's really a big one for us. We have 2 main areas in the gardens. Our Idea Garden has a big bulb display, and then our Flower Garden walk. So those are I would say kind of the most must see, certainly in the spring anyway. And I really do think it varies by season. So in the fall, everyone's always trying to see our chrysanthemum
Okay.
display in the conservatory. And then of course in the Christmas time, it's the Christmas display. So I think it really varies by season.
And everyone's different. I know when I go to the arboretums and gardens, the thing that I like to find the oldest, largest tree, because I'm just so impressed. I mean, they're just mammoth. Most of them are just large, and just walking under them, it's just a weird feeling. So yeah, everyone's got their different things that attract them, their focal points.
Absolutely.
And I think something that's fun about Longwood is it has its really like flashy, like displays. Like you guys have like the fountain that's like timed with the music, right?
Yes.
Which is so fun and like makes me laugh when I see it, and has nothing to do with plants, but it's just like a kind of a spectacle, and everyone is staring at it when it happens, like on the hour or whatever time intervals it happens. But then there's very like understated parts of the gardens as well. That I know there's a meadow area, there are some more kind of naturalistic areas, and some kind of more downplayed, more trees and shrubs rather than the really bright, showy flowers. So it kind of seems like there's a little something for everyone to find there. And then the conservatory, is its own sort of vibe in there as well. You must be a very organized person to keep all of this sort of in your head. And like, how do you, I'm kind of curious as someone who, I mean, we all have multiple projects going on at once. But how do you keep all of that straight? You have such a long list of responsibilities around the grounds.
That's a great question. One that I think I'm still figuring out myself.
Yeah.
I will say I just took a course on Outlook. It was called Working Smart in Outlook, and it's taught me so many things about how to use Outlook a little bit smarter and really manage my calendar. There are things I never knew existed that I could do. So that's been a real big time saver for me. I have a lot of spreadsheets. I've gotten really good at spreadsheets, calendars. It's something I've also really been thinking of with my role, is not only getting myself organized, which is always kind of a constant challenge, but making sure all of our other staff members are on the same page and that they have all the necessary information that they need, which is kind of coming from me, but how is it all synced? And it's an ongoing challenge, but definitely calendars has been really helpful for me. And I've been exploring a few different project management type boards. So there's something called a Trello board. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's something I'm using.
Okay.
So work in progress.
It always is.
So in Longwood's a internationally known garden, and when it was first started, it was more, and still I think it's a awesome place to go for plant collections. But I'll admit my own ignorance on this. Is there also now more of a component where you try to bring in any plants, and I'm talking maybe more like native to like the mid-Atlantic or Pennsylvania, that have become threatened species? So it becomes also like a conservation area to try to protect those species, almost like, going back to Tom's analogy about a zoo. I mean, unfortunately for some of the animals in zoos, I mean, they're there because they're running out of the wild species itself. So I didn't know if any of that took place there.
So we do have a pretty robust science program. So I'm within the horticulture department. We have 3 different groups, divisions. So we have our science division, myself in horticulture operations, and then our conservatory and design team. And as part of the science group, we have our research and conservation team. So they do a lot of what you just said, a lot of plant conservation. So they go on different plant exploration trips with other partner gardens and really look for, a lot of threatened, endangered species. We'll bring a lot back so we can have in our research greenhouses and really make sure that we pretty much exactly like you said, have a representative of that species in case anything were to happen.
And I was at Longwood recently in the past year, so I think I've been there twice. And I know you're building on to the conservatory. I think that's going to be attached to the old one, or is that going to be a separate building? And what, other than just kind of expanding to have more room, is there also like a new focus for that conservatory?
So this is our Longwood Reimagined project, anticipated completion 2024. And it will be essentially, like you said, it will be like our West Conservatory. So it will be connected. It will be, all part of the same complex, but designed a little bit differently. So the focus is going to be on a more Mediterranean plant palette, Mediterranean plant palette. But we'll still, a lot of garden guests will remember our water lily display. So we will still have that, a lot of bonsai. I know that's a big favorite of our guests. So a little bit of kind of some old favorites, but also a new plant palette and a new experience.
I think another reason why people know Longwood beyond sort of the visitor experience within our world is the professional horticulture program, which I know has been going on for a long time and has had a lot of different iterations. I think it was a master's program with University of Delaware at one point, and now is kind of this professional horticulture certificate program. So there's this group of like new kind of trainees who are coming into these programs each year, and they're kind of all walks of life. And I know that some people, they're right out of high school and they're just like really jazzed about a career in horticulture. And then there are some people who are career changers. And so I don't know about you guys, but I encounter graduates of that program just all over the place. Maybe because I'm in the Philly area, but there's obviously a huge reach that Longwood has in that way. So do those students, like how do they interact with your horticulture staff members? Is there a big sort of mentorship environment? Are they incorporated into daily tasks pretty regularly? Like how do they sort of make their way into the day-to-day operations at the gardens?
So that was a really good explanation of that program. I think you really described that really well, as far as the different types of people that we get in the program. And it's funny, I was at a workshop just yesterday and I saw a former student. So I do tend to see them a lot of different places myself. And then as far as their interactions with their staff, so they are, students, so they do have, they go to class, but they alternate kind of their classroom experience with a more hands-on experience with their staff. So depending on if they're a first-year student or second-year student, they'll have 2 or 3 days a week with our staff. The first year students have 2 days with our staff or 3 days, and then our second year will have the vice versa, either 3 or 2 days. And then the off days they'll be in class. So when they're with our staff, they're fully immersed in whatever we're doing. So they'll have, for example, an IPM, they'll do a month with us. And they'll just be involved with all of our day-to-day activities. So whether we're scouting, maybe doing a beneficial insect release, so whatever it might be, they're right there hands-on with us. And they have a bunch of different rotations. So they'll work with the IPM team, our conservatory teams, our greenhouse production teams, research teams. So all of the different horticulture areas that we have, they'll work in as well.
In doing some prep for this podcast, I noticed that you have a solar field on the property. Somewhere in the gardens, is that correct? Solar panels?
We do have a solar field, not in the gardens proper. It's still, on our property, but more towards where our nursery property is located.
Okay. So is there any research going on things that could be grown underneath that, plants that could survive, some of that shade, that microenvironment?
That's a really good question. I don't know that answer. Okay. I'm not sure. if we are.
And the reason I ask is the extension offices here at Penn State, more and more of our growers are looking at this as an option for some of their land. And they're inquiring that what can we do with this land underneath? Is it something we just have to let, just mow, or can we do something else with it? So it's a question we're grappling with too. And I do know there's some research going on with that. But so, with these solar panels or other parts of the operation you have there, what kind of equipment are you using? This whole idea of sustainability, I see you have the solar panels, but what about equipment? Is it the typical combustion engine, or are you using other things?
A little bit of both. So we do have, I think, what you would definitely consider as more traditional. So our, smaller kind of ATV type vehicles, tractors. But we also we're looking into a lot of electric options. So electric golf carts, electric, smaller vehicles that our conservatory and production staff can use. So and electric blowers, for blowing off paths and things like that. So a little bit of a mixed bag.
I would think that those electric pieces of equipment too would come in handy with if there is overlap between garden maintenance and when guests are there, because they're so much quieter.
Yeah.
And just like a regular gas powered leaf blower is just my least favorite sound in the world, and so I'm amazed at how quiet the electric equipment can be. That seems like it, in addition to being more sustainable, seems like an asset to a public space that you're maintaining.
It really is. I mean, in an electric vehicle, I have come upon garden guests that don't even know that I'm there.
You can sneak up on anyone.
No, that could be dangerous too, though, in a way.
Just to piggyback with Tom's question about the solar field that you have, is that the energy being generated off of that, is that getting funneled back into Longwood, or are you just selling it off to the grid for financial reasons?
That's a good question too. I'm not totally positive on that answer. I do believe that it is funneled back into Longwood, but as far as kind of how much energy we're generating, that I'm not sure.
Yeah, not really a Hort related question, but I was just curious, because I do see more of them, and I'm just kind of like, wondering, how's that energy being distributed?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I feel like I should know that answer or have discussed it with other colleagues at work. I just don't, off the top of my head, know that answer.
With your time at Longwoods, in interacting with visitors, have you seen any trends, movement towards certain things? How they're consuming? Are they reading more, reading less? Are they using apps? What kind of trends have you noticed from when you first started in Longwoods to now?
Or the types of questions that you get from visitors?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely feel like I just see more technology, when people walk through the gardens, it just seems like a lot more, everyone has a cell phone, which, I mean, I guess is natural, they're taking pictures, but it just seems like everyone has some kind of device. So I think I see that more often. Interestingly enough, I don't know if I see a lot of change in the type of questions that I get asked. It has always been, what is this bug? I seem to get always that question with, the picture, and what are you doing at Longwood, and what can I do at my house? I guess though, if there, like a slight shift, it seems like people are really more interested in a sustainable option. Something they can do that's not chemically, like a chemical control. So I think I do see that a little bit more. Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool then. It's good to see that occurring with the homeowners and home gardeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we kind of start to wrap up our conversation, I wonder, and I kind of wished that I had asked this of all of our guests, but what's the hardest part about your job, and what's your favorite part about your job?
I think for me, sometimes that's the same thing for me, the hardest and the best part. I think I've always enjoyed, with my years in IPM, but also my current role, it seems to always be something different every day. And I love getting such a varied work day. And kind of with that, it's always a new challenge, something that I need to solve, or a new insect pest or whatever it may be. But that can also be kind of the most challenging thing about my job as well, especially these days with a new role. And it just seems like even with life, it just seems like everyone's so busy, things aren't slowing down. It's just more and more things to juggle and to manage. But I think I'll always like how varied my job is, and that there's always something new every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. And with the seasons changing all the time, and we have these new, there's always something new to learn about and a new problem to solve.
Yes.
Well, wonderful, Rachel. It's been so great to talk with you. Before our final question, Tim and Tom, do you have any other questions for Rachel?
Do you have a favorite plant there?
Oh,
you have probably of all the guests we've had, you have like the easiest access to the most number of species, like on any given day. So I didn't know if there's something that really stood out that you're like, when times are stressful, you have to go over and sit by that
in front of it
and contemplate. Yes.
Plant therapy.
That's such a good question. I feel like I'm oftentimes asked what my favorite insect is, but my favorite plant. I really love our beach trees. I love our beach LA. If you've ever been to Longwood, I just feel like it's so majestic. I love it in all seasons. It's a big focal point of our Christmas display in the winter, and it's just for me just a really nice, peaceful place. I have to walk through it pretty frequently, and it's just a really nice part of our gardens, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I did make it there this year for the first time for the Christmas display, and it really is something. And if any of the listeners have never been there and can make it there, it's definitely worth the trip.
It's my favorite season, so I'm maybe a little bit biased, but I really like our Christmas display. It's really fun to brainstorm, plan for our Christmas display. Kind of with my new role, I'm a lot more involved. That's something I didn't mention, but I really enjoy our Christmas display, all the planning, the creation.
That's great. Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. We like to end our conversations by asking a personal question of our guests. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, what do you like to do when you're not working at Longwood?
I have two things. One I get to do a little bit more often, but definitely traveling and cooking. I think those are my two favorite things. I have not traveled as much lately as I would like, but I love traveling, seeing different cultures, trying the food. It's a big thing. And then when I can't do that, I really like to cook at home.
Nice. I feel like looking at plants and eating food is a really good way to travel the world.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was really fun. Thanks for sharing with us about Longwood and about your work. We really enjoyed having you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right, take care.